Car manufacturers are wondering why their lots are filling up and their new cars are not selling. Older used cars have low inventory numbers on car lots, contrary to new car inventory, which clearly is not selling at all. Tesla is having the worst quarter in Q1 of 25, an indication that not all is well, and even Mercedes-Benz can't move a lot of their low-cost price point vehicles like these small little GLB Mercedes-Benz. And brands like Nissan lost $4.5 billion last year, and they're on the verge of bankruptcy as well. Sure, while new cars are selling, the fact of the matter is numbers are drastically down. What's going on with that? We're going to share some of those reasons right now. Let's go. Mercedes-Benz is one of those classic examples. They were one of the leading innovators for a lot of electrification. They really got ahead of the game. Of course, they do have their little price point cars like this, but the problem is Mercedes-Benz tried to get ahead with their EQE, EQS models of luxury sedans in their full electric format, and nobody wanted them. And the few people that bought them realized that this is a complicated brand with complicated technology that's going to cost us a lot of money. The fact remains is they could not read the room, and that's what's going on. The first major reason that a lot of these car brand sales are drastically down is they're creating products that a lot of buyers simply do not want. I mean, sure, while you can get smaller price point vehicles, here we have a CLA, GLA, GLB, all those smaller vehicles, and every manufacturer has them, from Toyota to Lexus to Mercedes-Benz to Porsche. They all have a lower price point vehicle to try to hit every segment of the market. The fact is, less and less of those available, and the lower price point vehicles have gone through the roof in pricing. So the vehicles that they are trying to really push are the electrification, hybrid vehicles. And that's a major reason why sales are down. The prices are high because the research and development to create those electric vehicles is driving the price up, not just on the EVs, but on every single vehicle. See, if you're selling a price point vehicle like a CLA or a GLA like this Mercedes-Benz, that profit has to go in to feed some of those highly priced EVs and the technology, the research, the development. Because even according to Ford, they're losing tens of thousands of dollars on the production and sales of every single one of their EVs. So how do they make that up? Increase the price on some of their high volume sales. Another example of manufacturers not reading the room right or understanding what consumers actually want is example of Jaguar. When they wanted to rebrand themselves, they came out with all of these flashy colors, the pinks, the purples, and they had to make it and introduce it about something that had nothing to do with the automotive industry. A clear slap in the face for traditionalists, those who generally love the brand. And while it was never a high volume brand to begin with, the fact remains is there was a very loyal populace of owners and buyers of the Jaguar brand. Well, after that rebrand, they thought they were reading the room, but they clearly missed the mark. Another example of them not reading the writing on the wall and following what customers are actually looking for, almost every single domestic manufacturer's pretty much given up on cars. That's right, cars, even though they are a slightly shrinking marketplace, cars offered an opportunity for driving that a lot of people just prefer. There is a segment of the population that just will not drive an SUV, and they'd much rather drive their car. Well, Chrysler got rid of the 300. We saw the 200 go away. Also, we talk about Chevy and their Malibus. Every manufacturer, including Ford, have all pretty much turfed their cars, other than a Toyota or a Honda. And not everybody wants a Toyota or a Honda or a premium luxury car that costs $140,000. They ultimately missed the mark and lost a whole segment of the industry. If you're liking the video so far, you're gonna love the rest of the channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and don't forget the notifications bell so you know when the next amazing videos come. And this is the second reason why sales are drastically down. Here we have, lo and behold, we have a Tesla. Now we know Tesla is one of the leading innovators of electric vehicles, and they were selling at record rates until things got political. Politics do not belong in the automotive space. But even though they do continue to sell, unfortunately the first quarter, Q1 of 2025, shows indications that they've seen the worst sales in history for Tesla. That's right, they finally saw the massive drop. And unfortunately, most other manufacturers are creating these highly priced EVs. I mean, you pretty much can't get into an electric vehicle, whether it's a Mustang Mach-E, Ford F-150 Lightning, Teslas, nothing really for less than $70,000 or $80,000. But that's the problem. The cars that are ultimately going to sell are those cheap runabouts for people that don't care about cars and just want a convenient way to get around. That's right. If they came up with a cheap, affordable electric vehicle just for those people that like to scoot around town and do short trips to the grocery store, otherwise they would ride their bicycle or usually their tandem bicycles, they would actually drive a $15,000 electric vehicle. The problem is they don't exist. With all of the limitations on these vehicles, it just means that a lot of people are looking for other options. And the fact remains is more people simply want to continue driving a predictable, relatively reliable internal combustion engine, and electric vehicles, while they do serve a purpose for a segment, the idea of getting forced into that type of drivetrain just doesn't sit well with a lot of people. People want choice, and of course, if we're losing the ability to choose an affordable internal combustion vehicle engine, people are just going to continue fixing some of their older vehicles and skip out on the new EVs. The third reason a lot of people aren't buying vehicles right now, especially new vehicles, is the cost of living calamity. It's a collection of the perfect storms. Of course, the high cost of living with food and housing and vehicles and manufacturing costs. Of course, the fact that there were shutdowns back in 2020 through 22. Not to mention higher taxes, this change in a lot of governments. There seems to be a lot less money to go around every single day. And as a result, people are much more choosy. They don't have the money. They don't have the extra cash. Even a lot of the banks and the lenders are doing things like extending longer loan terms, 84, 96 months. They're trying to get people into car loans. The fact remains is, even if you can budget it down, the bottom line is a lot of people simply don't want to take that risk. Get into a car loan for 7 years when you only have a warranty for 3? That doesn't seem like a great idea, especially when you're dealing with vehicles and high reliability challenges and extremely high maintenance and services costs. A lot of people are shying away from anything that doesn't begin with T and end with A. Ultimately, people are just keeping their money a little bit longer. Yeah, there's a time when you have to buy, and that's also a big reason why the used car market is just so tight and it's hard to find a good used vehicle, because people now are starting to dig in and see what sort of inventory is out there on the used space, so they don't have to spend their hard-earned dollars on a brand new premium vehicle that's costing $80,000, $100,000, $150,000. Rather get into something that's $20K and maybe they'll get the same lifespan out of it, maybe they won't, but it's a risk most people are willing to take. Another massive reason why new car sales are down and people aren't buying comes down to very similar as what I just mentioned, but this really dials it in more specifically, and it's the cost increases that we've seen in the last few years of modern day vehicles. Now, a lot of these vehicles like pickup trucks are some of the worst culprits, and there's certain manufacturers that have been really overzealous. Some of the big domestics, the Fords, the GMs, the Chevys, and even as well as Stellantis selling a lot of their Dodge products, Jeep products, are simply overpriced. They've gone up a significant amount of money. Now you think about the cost increase or inflationary increases that we've seen since 2020. The majority of that increase comes in a 2.5% to 3.5% increase year over year, means that since 2019, the average increase should have only gone up about 12 to 15%. But that's just not happening in the car industry when we're seeing the average car price go up anywhere from 25 to 40, 50% in some cases. Even a truck like this, in this little Chevy, we see this ZR2 Colorado. This truck has no business being anywhere north of $45,000, and yet I've seen these on the market locally for a ZR2 package like this, brand new, as much as $90,000. What's going on with these prices on any of these trucks, cars, and SUVs? Because right now the average transaction price of a vehicle today in the US is almost $49,000. And a big part of that has to do with the high prices of full-size trucks. Even the smaller trucks are going up in price, and certainly all of the luxury vehicles are driving the prices way up, with Porsche pretty much leading the brand with one of the highest average transaction prices in the base. It's just no wonder people don't have the money. Transaction prices are up over $50,000, and then you want to spread that out over 5 years, and you're dealing with $1,500 a month payments for 6 or 7 years. It's just way out of touch with a lot of buyers these days, and simply the costs are just too much for many people to bear. Therefore, again, they defer and they either look for a used car, slightly used, slightly older, maybe some miles on it, but something they can also fix, and that way they can keep it on the road and maybe get another 4 or 5 years out of it. It's not pretty. You may have a few bumps and scratches and bruises all over it, including scrapes like that and scratched up rims, but it is affordable. And that's what people want, are affordable vehicles. They don't need all of this expensive new luxury when the cost of living calamity is right in the midst. Another reason why sales are down is because anything that resembles a strong, durable engine, perhaps even something like this Jaguar F-Type, believe it or not, maybe not the most durable, reliable manufacturer on the planet, but in fact it does have a wonderful 550 horsepower supercharged 5-liter V8 under the hood, strapped to an ultra-reliable ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, means this is something almost from yesteryear. As well, BMW has one too. And of course, they carry that twin-turbo 4.4-liter V8 in this beautiful 850i. Now, it's a gorgeous vehicle, but because it has what's left of a relatively desirable engine, you're going to pay for it, and you're going to pay for it in such a way that most people can't afford it or certainly can't justify it. Now, here we have this beautiful all-wheel drive xDrive M850i. These are fun and furious, but who can afford these days? And certainly with the reliability concerns and also with the service costs and the parts costs, most people don't want to risk it. But unless you spend that significant amount of money and a king's ransom to get in one of these older school big V8 engines, V10 engines, something that was reliable, robust, most people are stuck with what the new trend is, and that's little engines. Because there was a time when all of these vehicles were had V6 or V8 engines, but now little cars like this with 3-cylinder engines in it are becoming more the norm. You look at Buick, the Encore, you look at Ford and the EcoSport, you look at GM and as well, even their Blazer, and almost every manufacturer is now carrying some sort of a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. So they're taking a baby engine like this that's lumpy, dumpy, underpowered, certainly, and throw a turbo on it, and now it's a recipe for reliability disaster. And that's what they're throwing in vehicles that should have no right being in an SUV, but they're doing that. And that's unfortunately, a lot of people are looking at the market and saying, look, if I have to buy this with a 3-cylinder engine or a problematic turbocharged engine with direct injection, I don't want it. And therefore people take a walk. This here is the next reason why people are not buying a lot of brand new vehicles, and it's the service costs. But it's not just the service cost, because we've always had vehicles, they've always needed maintenance and repairs, and cars break down. That's just what they do. They're mechanical and they wear out. But you see, did you realize the majority of vehicles these days don't fail because of bad transmissions or bad engines, unless your name starts with a G and ends in a C, or starts with an F or ends in a D. Other than that, yes, a lot of engines these days, contrary to popular belief, are actually quite reliable. Engines, transmissions are fairly good, other than some select oddballs and CVT transmissions. Direct injection isn't great, but they are meant to run a significant amount of miles. But that's not the problem. The problem is a lot of these vehicles today are very electrified, and the mass majority of failures are the electronics. Infotainment systems, navigation, sensors for parking sensors, or accident avoidance detection systems, or pedestrian warning. And it's the sensors, they glitch, they fail, or even the fact that a lot of these cars are so computerized now that you run a lower, weaker battery, maybe in extremely cold weather, or it gets to be a few years old, all of a sudden it ignites a few Christmas tree lights of failure modes on your dashboard. And that's largely because a lot of these electronics now require to be within a very finite amount of voltage. If your battery gets a little weak, runs a little lower voltage, that destroys your alternator, because alternators are no longer there to charge, they're more to maintain, but it also ignites and triggers a lot of these fault codes. And so a lot of these alarms and a lot of these electronics are the real problem for a lot of modern day vehicles. And the worst part is when you're spending a significant dollar, and I mean $150, $200 plus an hour shop rate, because your car checks an engine or goes into limp mode because of some weird code or because of some obscure sensor, that's huge dollars out of your pocket after 3 years. People are nervous, so there's a little bit of an inclination to avoid a lot of new cars, especially if they're the latest and they haven't been necessarily tried and true. Now, while there are a lot of great vehicles out there, that's a thing of the future. We're not going to avoid it. But the bottom line is, there is this certain underlying fear. Now, fear not, a lot of this electronics is good, and a lot of it makes our vehicles safer, perform better, more economical. It even makes it more fun and gives us some fancy lights inside. But ultimately, what we don't want to have is something that sends us to the service shop with bills that look like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 just to diagnose some strange electrical gremlin. Nobody's looking for that, and nobody asked for that. But unfortunately, the regulators, unfortunately the industry as a whole, and even the customers have risen the expectation of more complexity, more tech, and now more cost. That said, there's still some absolutely amazing brand new cars you can still buy for your money. New cars are always wonderful to drive. That new car smell, it's a great thing. But definitely you want to check out what's going on there. Some of the biggest joke cars you can possibly imagine. I found them and I'm sharing them with you. Hope to see each and every one in the next one, everybody. See you real soon. Bye-bye.